Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to call to order the September 26, 2016 meeting of the Dover City Council. I'm going to ask you to please join us for an invocation by Chaplain Wallace Dixon. It will be followed by a moment of silence offered by Mayor Christensen, and then the pledge to our nation's flag led by Councilman Hare. Chaplain Dixon.
Our Father and our God, we thank you for another meeting. We ask you to bless us as we go through this meeting. Touch us, if you please, to try to break some of this, try to help each person call, and try to bring some type of silence to the voice. Touch each and every one, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Mayor Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask ladies and gentlemen to please join me in a moment of silence for firefighters from the city of Wilmington, Lieutenant Christopher Leach, Senior Firefighter Jerry Fix, who made the ultimate sacrifice for those that they served, and our prayers for the recovery of firefighters Artie Hope and Brad Speakman. And let us offer our prayers for their families, friends, and fellow firefighters. Always keep them in the palm of your hand and close to your heart.
Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gentlemen, you have before you this evening's agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Move for approval as presented.
Second.
Been moved by Councilman Hutchison, seconded by Councilman Neal, to approve the agenda as presented and distributed. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now turn our attention to the consent agenda. Those items on the council agenda which are considered routine and non-controversial are marked with an asterisk and will be acted upon by a single roll call vote of the council. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of council so requests, in which event the matter shall be removed from the consent agenda and considered a separate item. What is the pleasure of council? Councilman Hosfeld.
I'd like to remove item 3C from the consent agenda.
Hosfeld is requesting item 3C be removed from the consent agenda. Councilman Cole.
Item 4A, number 5.
Cole has requested 4A, number 5. Any other items requested to come off the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Lewis, seconded by Councilman Hare to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Sudler?
Yes.
Mr. Beal?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Hosfeld?
Yes.
Mr. Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes, motion carries unanimously. Item 2A is a proclamation for Cyber Security Awareness Month. I would invite Mayor Christensen and Andy Siegel, Information Technology Director for the City of Dover, to the podium for the presentation, and I would ask the City Clerk to read the proclamation into the record.
Whereas we recognize the vital role that technology has in our daily lives and in the future of the City of Dover. Today, many citizens, schools, libraries, businesses, and other organizations use the internet for a variety of tasks, including keeping in contact with family and friends, managing personal finances, performing research, enhancing education, and conducting business. And whereas critical sectors are increasingly reliant on information systems to support financial services, energy, telecommunications, transportation, utilities, healthcare, and emergency response systems. whereas internet users and our information infrastructure face increasing threats of malicious cyber attack, invasion of privacy from spyware and adware, and significant financial and personal privacy loss due to identity theft and fraud. And whereas Delaware's Did You Know campaign is aimed at increasing the understanding of cyber threats and empowering the public to be safer and more secure online. Maintaining the security of cyberspace is a shared responsibility in which each of us has a critical role, and awareness of computer security essentials will improve the security of the City of Dover information infrastructure and economy. Now, therefore, I, Robin R. Christensen, Mayor of the City of Dover, Delaware, do hereby proclaim October 2016 as Cybersecurity Awareness Month in the City of Dover, and urge all citizens to learn about cybersecurity and put that knowledge into practice.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mayor Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Siegel, on behalf of myself and the members of the City Council, I'd like to present this proclamation to you as you maintain our cybersecurity for all of our secure systems in the City of Dover. And we greatly appreciate your efforts, and I appreciate personally your help since I've been in office teaching me how to use my iPhone, since it's run by Steam still. You've brought me into the acclimated world of that. So if you'd like to say a few words to us about cybersecurity.
First of all, I'm not really responsible for cybersecurity. I do work with the equipment, but really cybersecurity lies with all of us individually. There is nothing, no hardware or no software that can match the insecure way that we operate on computers. In the last week, Yahoo was hacked. 500 million accounts were hacked. So if you haven't changed your Yahoo password, do that soon. But one thing that was brought to light in that hack was many of us have secure passwords, but we also have challenge questions. Well, if the hackers now have the answers to the challenge questions, they have a lot more than just our passwords. So I would recommend if there's a possibility of using two-factor authentication with a password and a cell phone, do that as much as possible. But cybersecurity lies with individual people. There's no machine that can take the place of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2B is a proclamation for fire prevention. I'd like to invite Chief Carey to the podium, as well as the Chair of the Safety Advisory and Transportation Committee, Councilman Hosfeld, as well as Councilman Anderson and Mayor Christensen, and request that the clerk read the proclamation into the record.
Whereas the City of Dover is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our city, and fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally. And whereas the 2016 Fire Prevention Week theme, Don't Wait, Check the Date, Replace Smoke Alarms Every 10 Years, represents the final year of a 3-year effort to educate the public about basic essential elements of smoke alarm safety. And whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half. When smoke alarms fail to operate, it is usually because batteries are missing, disconnected, or dead. And whereas smoke alarms should be replaced every 10 years. Make sure you know how old all the smoke alarms are in your home. To find out how old a smoke alarm is, look at the date of manufacture on the back of the alarm and replace it if it is more than 10 years from that date. Now, therefore, I, Robin R. Christensen, Mayor of the City of Dover, Delaware, do hereby proclaim October 9th through 15th, 2016 as Fire Prevention Week in the City of Dover, and urge all residents to make sure their smoke alarms are working properly and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of fire and emergency service personnel.
Mayor Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. President. My favorite smoke detector story is when I was fire prevention officer for the fire department. We had a group of 40 children who were in the lobby of the firehouse, and I asked them, what does it mean when your smoke detector goes off? And all the little kids looked at me, and I said, what does it mean when the smoke detector goes off in your house? And one little boy put his hand up, and I said, yes. He said, dinner's ready. So Chief Carey, on behalf of myself and the members of council and the citizens of the city of Dover, we want to present you with this proclamation, and we greatly appreciate the work that you do as active firefighters and also the fire prevention program that the Robbins Hose Company has had in place for many, many, many years. They see between 2,500 and 3,000 children during Fire Prevention Week and throughout the course of the year, teaching them fire safety regulations. And I want to recognize, if I can, Chief, Councilman Sudler, Councilman Anderson, who did a rather great, made a rather great contribution to the fire prevention efforts here in the city. And I'd like the two of you gentlemen to explain what happened.
Thank you. It actually, it is we the city that did it, and I just happened to be the person that spearheaded, but it was everyone's cooperation because no one raised an objection, and the city staff did a great job of moving everything very quickly to ensure that people in need had the opportunity to have fire smoke detectors. Because smoke detectors, of course, save lives, but they don't if they're not operational or non-existent. And it was brought to my attention, Chief, that there were requests for some, but the monies were no longer available to help fund them. So thanks to the wisdom of this council, which allowed discretionary funding, we were able to allocate $1,000 to help people who needed smoke detectors, and that's something that could truly save lives. And I hope that gets back in the budget, but I'm glad we were able to keep the program going for Fire Prevention Week. And I believe Chief said there's already been, 7 people who have already had requests fulfilled. So if you need them, please contact the fire department. I'll let Chief explain more.
Can I interrupt 1 second? I neglected to invite Councilman Lewis to the podium. I believe you were assisted in that program as well for distributing smoke detectors in your district. I apologize for not including you.
Well, come on down.
Chief Carey?
We have bought the, out of the $1,000, we were able to get 200 smoke detectors. We have them available now. It's at the main station on South Governors Avenue. If anyone's welcome to come in to receive one. We have been asking for a while for support for that because it does get very expensive. And we want to do anything we can to protect everybody's lives and be able to be awakened at night when there is an issue. And I especially want to thank Mr. Anderson for his support, coming to me, brought my attention to help us out, and Donna and Scott jumped right on it, and we're in service with 200 smoke detectors today and ready for fire prevention to start next week. And we'll approximately have about 40 to 60 man hours a day for that entire week, each day, going to schools, preschools, daycares. We've sent out pamphlets out 3 weeks ago to all the schools and all, so they can schedule to come to the station, or we can come to them for that entire week.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Mr. Lewis? Thank you. Councilman Anderson. Councilman Anderson.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
My name makes me feel like all those signs were in a week.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Item 2C is a proclamation for Halloween trick or treat. I'd request the city clerk to read the proclamation into the record.
Whereas the children of the city of Dover enjoy the fun and festivities associated with the observance of the Halloween trick-or-treat custom of traveling with friends and family, going from door to door in their neighborhood, displaying their costumes, and gathering treats. Whereas parents are urged to join in the festivities by accompanying their children throughout their journeys and celebrating Halloween trick-or-treat. And whereas residents are requested to indicate their willingness to welcome children by keeping their porch or exterior lights on, and that youngsters call only on homes which are lighted. And whereas the mayor of the city of Dover has deemed it advisable to observe the celebration of Halloween trick-or-treat on Monday, October 31st, 2016, between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Now therefore, I, Robin R. Christensen, mayor of the city of Dover, Delaware, do hereby proclaim that the Halloween trick-or-treat observance held on the 31st day of October 2016 between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. in the city of Dover, and urge all residents, both young and old, to make this a happy and safe occasion for our children.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Agenda item 3 is the Economic Development Committee report for September 13th, 2016. Item A, Economic Development Committee transition discussion, and 1, review of team membership. Mayor Christensen, would you please brief us on this item?
I defer to Mr. Koenig.
Mr. Koenig.
Thank you, Mayor. At the last economic development meeting, we had a detailed and lengthy discussion regarding the committee's composition and it relating to past discussions regarding the addition of minority voting members to the voting block for the committee. After substantial discussion, the committee actually recommended to add 2 minority voting members who have an economic development and/or business-oriented background to the Economic Development Committee meeting. The qualifications and selection to be determined by City Council, and there is a resolution included in the packet that would further that recommendation so that we can solidify the resolution. As I said, there was substantial debate about it and discussion. We had specific requests from members of the community to add voting members to the committee, not just advisory members to the committee, and this is the recommendation being put forth by the Economic Development Committee. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions on the issue? Councilman Anderson?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the members of the committee, the mayor and the council president and committee for their support and listening to the community on this issue. And I think and I move that the recommendation of the committee be adopted.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Anderson, seconded by Councilman Sudler, to accept the recommendation of the minority voting members who are economic development or business oriented to the Economic Development Committee, with qualifications and selection to be determined by council, and adopting proposed resolution number 2016-11. Is there any discussion on the matter? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 3C was also pulled off the consent agenda, which is part of the Economic Development Committee report. It's a review of requests for utility connection assistance. Mayor Christensen, would you defer to Mr. Koenig for this explanation?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Koenig, I defer to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, the committee has been discussing a number of ways to encourage economic activity throughout the city. In this case, these recommendations are coming specifically out of the Downtown Development District efforts. And as council is aware, there are a number of incentives associated with the Downtown Development District. They range from reimbursement of project expenses through the state to reimbursement of expenses through Kent County, as well as the waiving of fees and other items such as tax abatement from the city of Dover. And as we've progressed through discussions regarding applications in the development district, we have run into additional requests for incentives from at least 2 developers. The requests that were discussed by the committee were inclusive of a request by Maltese Investment Group related to some development or redevelopment at 420 West Reed Street. And then also an application regarding the potential redevelopment of property at the corner of Lockerman and Governor's Avenue. In both cases, the development applicants are requesting reimbursement or offsetting of costs related to utility expansion. The way that utility expansion works in the city of Dover for projects, say in the undeveloped area of the city, the developer is responsible for all costs associated with the extension of electric, water, and sewer infrastructure to a development project, And then in some cases, a majority of that infrastructure is turned over for ownership and maintenance to the city of Dover. In this case, two very distinct applications. The one relates to the development of 6 residential units where we need 6 new water services, 6 new sanitary sewer services, and the ancillary electric infrastructure extended to these properties because the old building on the property was a single structure, commercial structure, with only one service to the building. So there are substantial costs related to that. The application references costs roughly $67,000 to extend electric infrastructure and water and sewer infrastructure to the property associated with the development application. The second application at the corner of Lockerman and Governors Avenue is related to the extension of a water main that would serve as a fire service to the building. The estimated cost of that extension is $30,000, and the applicant is requesting that the city contribute $30,000 to offset the cost of the extension of the water main to the property. There is an existing water service to the property, but this water main would act as an upgraded fire service so that the building could be sprinklered and additional commercial space be refurbished, as well as, I think, residential space be refurbished in the building. In both cases, there are long-term improvements that the city has been requesting be made by the developers. And there's long-term value that's created by these utility extensions, both in the renewal of residential stock in the downtown area, and then also as it relates to fire safety and suppression in the downtown area by extending the fire service to the commercial building at the corner. I guess it is the northeast corner of Governors and Lockerman Street. So there are public values that are related to these requests. However, in the Maltese application, the request is approximately $67,000 worth of city investment. In the second application related to Mr. Brandon, let me get the last name correct. Helton. Yes. It's approximately a $30,000 investment. None of these costs are identified in the city budget at this point. The committee recommendation was to actually recommend to the city or to city council that the city pay for these costs. That motion was approved. I voted no against the motion, really related to the fact that I would like to see the program capped at $25,000 was the recommendation on record. But this is an issue where the city is in a difficult position. We want to encourage investment in the downtown, but we have applicants coming to us and saying that there are utility costs that are really making the projects non-economical and non-feasible. So we're in the position where we need to invest in these properties, in these projects, if we want to see them move forward. If council is favorable to these types of investments, we need to bring back a budget amendment that would show where these costs will come from in the city budget. But these costs could be substantial as we move forward in the development district. We have 2 right now. I'm sure that we will have 2 or 3 more if council authorizes the funding. So even at the $25,000 range, you're talking potentially over $100,000 of investment. If you authorize the full cost, you're probably talking several $100,000 of investment. And staff would recommend that we bring back a budget amendment to fund these changes, as well as some guidelines on how the funds should be expended, whether these applicants need to submit more than one quotation for work, and who should prepare those estimates. So the recommendation, as I said, coming out of the committee was that council authorize these expenses for reimbursement by the city of Dover. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Anderson, then Councilman Hosfeld.
Thank you, Mr. President. I definitely think that if we have a downtown development district, which we're supposed to focus development and economic reclamation for, that we should put the infrastructure to, because after all, we put how many millions into Garrison, a few $100,000 to revitalize their downtown. It seems to be appropriate. But the question I have is the process one. I mean, I hesitate a little bit about just approving something without the process. Should we then take this to be able to answer all the questions that you had? Would it be appropriate to refer this recommendation to the Utility Committee to begin working some of this out, some of these questions out, or legislative finance or something of the sort? That is the question.
Councilman Anderson, I do think that the process needs to be laid out by staff and then endorsed by the City Council. So I think tonight, if the vote is we favor this, and you want to identify a level of funding, then we can come back with the process improvements or the milestones that have to be met. That would give the developers the understanding that they have X amount of dollars to work with at some point in the future. And I think it would give the staff comfort that we can come back with a program that's not a free-for-all, that you have to meet certain milestones for, and that council can endorse as a template for how do we budget for these, for like the FY18 budget, and how do we vet the applications as they come in. Is it a first come first served basis? Is there a reservation, of funding, things like that? So we were not prepared tonight to identify the process issues, but we would like the concept, I think, endorsed, and then we can come back for the process issues.
Councilman Hospa.
Thank you, sir. Who was present at the committee hearing?
The Economic Development Committee.
What members of the committee were present?
The mayor was there. I was there. Mrs. Townsend was there. Greg Moore was there. I believe Mr. Hare was absent, and Mr. Cole was absent. And those are the voting members as of that meeting.
Okay,
voting and ad hoc members.
This money's not in the budget currently.
This money is not identified in the budget at the moment.
Have we done this type of thing before with utilities?
I do not believe so. We have waived fees and stuff like that related to economic development, but I do not think we've had a program that I can recall where we are contributing cash to a private developer, except there have been some instances where we have oversized pipe. So if, for example, in a residential subdivision, there was an 8-inch pipe that was needed to serve the subdivision, but we expected it to be able to be extended in the future, we might oversize that pipe to 12-inch and pay the differential. But we have not, to my knowledge, got into the financing or the funding of individual utility services for commercial developments.
I guess my concern with this, it was put on consent agenda. And we're looking at right now, so consent agenda, if we hadn't read our packet, weren't paying attention, we would have approved the spending of $97,000, which is not budgeted for this project. And I have great concern with that. The fact that what I consider our leaders, our city leaders, our staff in this committee hearing, and we're at this point, I don't understand that. And why it wasn't directed to a committee. I think that's a problem that we have to address. And then a greater issue, I think, is once we start this, then we get into the business of picking and choosing, who gets what, who gets this, how much money do they get. I mean, even if we were to budget, even if we capped it at $25,000 per each thing, then we're at $50,000, which we still don't have budgeted. So I just, I'm upset that we're here, and we're talking about this, and like I said, if, reading through the packet last night, I'm looking and all of a sudden we're going to spend $97,000, which I couldn't find in the budget. And, I want to see downtown get developed as well, just like everybody else. But I don't know that we should be in the business of supporting landlords and restaurants. I just don't know that that's our business. So those would be my thoughts.
All right, thank you, Councilman Hosfeld. I'm going to respond to some of this. You said, why wasn't it sent to a committee? In fact, the Economic Development Committee is the committee it was in. That's the report that you received. If it needs an additional look, that's up to council for that. I believe that we are, as a government, we're being outpaced by the market at this point. Right? We have some business owners who want to expand in the downtown. We have some business owners who want to open new businesses in the downtown. They've come to us for what they get from other municipalities. This is the kind of infrastructure improvements that are usually laid into downtown areas to encourage growth. We chose not to do that as a city for whatever reason, and now we're going to have to do it on a case-by-case basis. But this is the exact moment when we either expand businesses downtown or we don't. And no one was making a request for several $100,000. I quoted you, Mr. Koenig. No one made that request this evening. Okay, so there was no need to inflate the request that was brought before us. We can, if we want to, we can really be very good bureaucrats. Right? We can wait till we get processes established and the forms right and everything else. And in the meantime, you've heard me say this before, we're getting beat to the market, and we're not getting beat by Philadelphia, we're not getting beat by Annapolis, we're getting beat by Smyrna, we're getting beat by Milford. Right? And if you want to know why, you'll see it right now. I'm just as much a steward of the public's money as anybody else, but I would just ask, how's this old way of government doing for us in attracting businesses downtown? When we have people who want to come in and improve two eyesores, take two eyesores, make them better properties, all right? They want to expand existing businesses or add additional businesses to the downtown area. And then, oh, by the way, they'll address life safety issues in both of those structures that previously won't be there, and if we don't approve this, won't be there tomorrow. So, I understand your concerns, and I respect them. I just think we need to move a little quicker. We need to move a little quicker on these things in order to be responsive to what the market is presenting us. Anyone else? Councilman Hosfeld?
Well, I think that goes back to a greater question then. We don't plan ahead as a council, as a staff, and this is another example. So we're just going to spend $97,000, of which we don't have. And I don't know how we do that. If it's something that was budgeted for and we do long-range planning, then I could see maybe supporting it. But at this point, I don't know how we support something that's not in the budget, especially at this expense.
Just be careful, because some of the discussions we had earlier this evening talked about larger expenses.
Understood.
That may come forward that are unbudgeted as well. Councilman Cole.
When we're looking at approving this or not approving it, whatever, is the pot of money, can it come from each of the three funds, or is that a Ms. Mitchell question, or is that?
So the first application, or the first request from the Maltese Investment Group, identified that they have about $7,000 of electrical costs, and then another just under $60,000 in water and sewer extension costs. I don't have the breakdown whether it's 30 and 30 or 40 and 20, but it was about $60,000 in water and sewer cost. Mr. Pelton's application is $30,000 of water infrastructure.
I just,
Go ahead.
No, I was just-
Councilman Hare and then Councilman Hosfeld.
The first one for 67, is that a business?
It's an investment company that's building residential housing units. So yes, it's a business.
Well, but it's an investment company.
Correct. It's a for-profit investment company, as far as I know.
And they're just going to build properties and then rent them out and make money.
I don't know whether I think the intent is that they be owner-occupied, but I don't know that that's where it ultimately ends.
I want to get clarification from Mayor Christensen.
sorry to intercede in your discussions, but they are going to be owner-occupied, Mr. Hare.
Mr. Harriet.
Okay. I guess my thing is, I understand like a business that wants to relocate in downtown, but what I'm hearing on that one is I could go downtown and get some property and get the city to pay for a lot of my expenses so I can build these houses and owner occupied and then make money and not have to pay any of it back. I think there should be something in there with, even with businesses. I have no problem supporting the businesses. I think it's good, let them, if they're, but you see a lot of businesses open and a year later they're out of business. I think there should be something tied to it that, if they're going to be there for the long term, I don't have a problem doing it. I want businesses that are going to be there for the long term. It just bothers me because this could open the door for a lot of realty companies just coming in and buying up some properties, rehabilitating them, and then we pay for everything, and then they make the profit. To me, there's two different things there. There's businesses. There's a business that wants to open a business downtown, ongoing, take care of it. I think that's great. I want that. Another one is kind of on the outskirts of the district, but they want to build houses down there and have us pay for a considerable amount of the infrastructure.
Councilman Hosfeld and then Councilman Neal.
I think Mayor Christensen may have answered it, but I thought I saw in the committee minutes where they weren't sure if it was going to be owner-occupied or rented. There was no commitment one way or the other on that.
Mayor Christensen.
Again, I apologize for interceding in your conversations. The developer's intent is to have owner-occupied properties.
intent.
It is his intent, and he has a reputation that we've kind of vetted out, Councilman Husfeldt. So this person is committed to the same vision that I believe the members of council are into revitalizing the downtown area, which at this point in time is 82% rental properties, and it's our intent to make that a stabilized neighborhood, which is going to result in other savings to this community and to all of our citizens by stabilizing that area and providing it with owner-occupied housing. So that was probably I know it was our consideration to meet that and to meet the vision that I hope is the same vision that I have for the revitalization of our downtown. And a healthy heart means a healthy city.
I guess, sorry, Mayor. If I have concern with one over the other, it's definitely the fact that we want to help somebody build 6 townhomes and sell them for a profit, and we're going to shell money out for this venture. Where, in fact, if I think of the owner of 33 West Ale House and Grill, I know what that brings to downtown. And, there's a commitment there that's already been seen, and I understand it, and, I believe in it. But, to be fair across the board, do I say no to both? Because quite honestly, I don't know that we have that commitment. We have intent, but intent can be often overruled by the pocketbook and wanting to sell properties that I put money into. So I have those concerns. And like I said, not to get in the business of trying to determine which business is better than the other. It would be my opinion to say no to both, because I don't know that we want to get into that business.
Councilman Neal, and then Councilman Anderson, and then Councilman Sutton.
I have the same concern in terms of building a house. And again, if I read it correctly, it was that I'm going to sell these houses, but if. And I think if there's a but if, and if the house is not sold, because I do not prefer to have additional rental property out there, there should be some sort of a clawback getting that money back in to the Treasury. I would also much prefer that we have a system in place, as suggested by our city manager, where we know it's going to be $25,000, and that is an incentive for them to do this, that we will do this for them. Eventually, if it pans out, we're going to get that money back in taxes, as you're going to have a higher assessable base, and that money should come back to us. But I think that there should be a clawback, and particularly on, and I agree with Councilman Hosfeld, I'm not as concerned with the 30,000, although I would prefer the 25, that if someone is selling a house and then walking away, that's a different story. But it should be sold. It should be people who are living there. And if they're not, then there should be a clawback so that we get all of that money back.
Councilman Anderson and then Councilman Sutton.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I do want to focus a little bit that there's been a terrific plan developed for downtown Dover that we've agreed to when we endorsed the Restoring Central Dover plan, and that plan was sixfold. Two of those were, one, bringing back residential home ownership, and the other was bringing back a vibrant business district. And what this is doing is looking at what is traditionally a government piece. The infrastructure is not a private infrastructure. It does not just serve, or it's not just owned by one group. That infrastructure, once in place, will allow us to do things that we've known that we're going to have to do. We know the infrastructure in that area has to be expanded anyway, because it's something that's going to be done. And the question is, in my view, not if we should proceed. It's just a matter of exactly how we should proceed. I think we should endorse a concept and refer this to an appropriate committee, develop our procedures, and move through this relatively quickly. I'd personally like to see this referred to staff and see what staff comes up with in the next 60 days. I think we should not allow investment opportunity to go away, because money will find, the investment money will find a place to invest. Money doesn't care about our city. It cares about a return on investment. And if we're the ones who need to care about the city and take advantage of money that's ready to be invested in our future, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Councilman Sutton.
Thank you, Council President Slavin. I have witnessed the dedication, the commitment, and the patience that the 33 West owner has endured with the pipe system and sewer, that he and his patrons have been patient with the city of Dover, and yet he continues to maintain and keep his business in the heart of downtown Dover. So with that said, I will support applicant number 2 because he has shown his dedication. I think he is worthy. I cannot support applicant number 1 because I have not seen that they are committed to the city of Dover, and I believe that if you are committed to the city of Dover, then we should be committed to you. Thank you.
Councilman Hare.
Just following up a little bit of what Mr. Sudler said, I concur. I have no problem supporting the first one. And on the second one for 67,000, I'd almost like to see, let them go ahead and do their development, and if they are, as the houses are built and sold and they become owner occupied, then maybe there could be an $11,000, I don't know what you want to call it, credit to them or given back to them or something. But if it turns out that all they do is build rental properties, well, that's on them. If they're going to do owner occupied, and we're going to have people that have a stake in the game downtown, they're paying taxes and they're property owners, I can see, like $11,000 for each of the 6 properties.
Is that a motion?
Any further discussion if you'd like to? Councilman Cole.
I would support that, but I also, moving forward, I would like to support, and I know it's bureaucratic a little bit, but also establishing a 30 or 60-day window here moving forward, so that because there are going to be, we're looking at public values versus unintended consequences, and there are going to be obviously other businesses, other owners, other groups come forward. So while I'm in support of, I think it was number 2, I also want to get this started with some type of process, some type of cap, so that we do encourage it, but also don't just open the floodgates too. I know that sounds kind of...
All right. Sir.
I
Councilman Lewis?
agree with my colleague, Mr. Hosfeld. I too have concerns as far as the funding of this. And also, I just want to make everyone aware that we're going to be setting precedents. What you have to do for one, you have to do for all.
Okay, is there someone who would like to make a motion to this effect? Councilman Sudler?
I move, first of all, for clarity, I think 33 West, is that applicant number 1 or 2?
That's the 131 West Lockerman Street address? Yep. 2 by address. 131 West Lockerman Street. The motion is?
Yes, I move that we grant and support the $30,000 for the pipe system at 131 West Lockerman Street at this present moment.
Second.
All right, been moved by Councilman Sudler, seconded by Councilman Anderson to support the request of assistance from the owner of, potential owner of 131 West Lockerman Street, as referred to in the Economic Development Committee report. Is there any further discussion? Councilman Hosfeld.
So we're okay with setting a precedent of money that we have not budgeted, haven't even talked about? We're okay with that as a council? That'd be my only comment.
Mr. Neal.
My preference would be basically to table until we come up at the next council meeting with a specific plan of what we're going to do, how much money we're going to allocate under these circumstances, as I believe our city manager would prefer, and also in terms of and handling each of these in terms of the promise that is made. I'm particularly concerned with the building of homes, if they're sold or they're going to be rented, and I think we have to come to grips with that. Therefore, I would not support this at this time, but would hope that a table will allow us to come up with a plan for the future, as I think that would be a much stronger emphasis as to what we'll do. We'll also be able to find out what pot of money it's going to come from, since there's no pot of money at this particular time.
Councilman Hutchison.
I certainly would echo comments made by Councilman Neal. I think that this is something we need to support, but at the same time, we need to have a business plan. And I'd like to see it referred to the city manager to come back with a proposal so that we can have something in writing to give us a clear direction of where we are going to apply these funds to. Thank you.
Councilman Sudler.
I guess my question, I guess my comment is in regards to the fact that we have an Economic Development Committee. And on the Economic Development Committee, we have the mayor, we have the city manager, the planning and zoning director, and 2 council persons. And I feel that we have enough credentials on that committee that if they're going to make this recommendation, or at least bring it to the table, that I think that they have, I would think that they would have already thought it out to the extent that we should move forward. Echoing off of the council president, Slavin, do we want to continue to do business and be last, or do we want to promote business? I do understand the budget and you know, the money issue. I do understand that, but we are trying to revitalize the businesses downtown, and so I believe that we should support the businesses that have already been here and shown that they are worthy. And I support 33 West, and I think that they're worthy of this request. Thank you.
So the motion that's before us is to support the request of 131 West Lockerman. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Sudler?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
No.
Mr. Lewis?
No.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Hosfeld?
No.
Mr. Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchison?
No.
Mr. Slavin?
Yes, motion passes 5-4. Is there a motion pertaining to the 420 Reed Street application? Councilman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. This property, unlike the other one, it's not existing. There's no particular rush. You have to have construction. I would move to refer this and other requests to staff to have by that time we should have in 60 days, we should be able to get a supplemental budget and some recommendations. I would refer this issue to staff to report back within 60 days.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Anderson, seconded by Councilman Sudler to refer the matter back to staff for a report back in 60 days. Is there any discussion on the matter? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Sudler?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Hosfeld?
No.
Mr. Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes, motion passes 8-1. I'll now entertain a motion to accept the report of the Economic Development Committee for September 13, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Sudler, seconded by Councilman Anderson. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now have before us item 4A5, discussion of survey results regarding programs, activities, and new building at Dover Park, which was heard as part of the Parks, Recreation, and Community Enhancement Committee. Protocol has that Councilman Cole asked for it to be pulled off of consent. Councilman Sudler, do you want to set up the issue and just summarize?
That's just fine.
Councilman Cole?
All right. This has arisen out of the good work of staff and others with looking at the survey and things like that. But a couple of the issues that have come out as from the district has been basically people have been calling, emailing, stopping me when I'm at the store, things like that, basically saying thank you for approving a new building. And I was like, ma'am, sir, we haven't got to that point yet. And so what I wanted to do was just kind of have a discussion tonight as to where we are in the process and where we're going. I just wanted to go through a couple points. While I am supportive at looking at all aspects of it, to start back at the beginning, we have an issue with trees, safety, vegetation, staffing issues all out there that I don't know if ever been really discussed or talked about. We've also had some issues where people have thrown out a private-public partnership, and why I agree that sometimes those work. A lot of times in the end, the public is usually left holding the bag a lot of times in those public-private partnerships. So I want to tread carefully as we look into that. We haven't looked at, each of us have a public building in our districts. They're called elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. A lot of us have good relationships with the Capital School District. We have children that go there, things like that. I don't know if we've ever all gotten together and reached out in that aspect. We have a new county complex that we don't know the impact of that yet. And I just think it leads to a bigger discussion as to, and it kind of goes back to the previous discussion, it was brought up, I think we need to look at a strategic plan, a long-term plan. So those are just a few of my issues with.
Councilman Neal.
We're dealing with specifically Dover Park, which is the 3rd district. All parks basically serve everyone. My concern is with the fact that many of the programs that have been suggested that would require a building don't need a building at Dover Park. They need a building. I mentioned the last time, there's the library, already doing some of the programs that have been suggested in other surveys. We have, as Councilman Cole has pointed out, the school system. Now, it could possibly cost us money because it's the Capital School District, but it seems to me they not only have playgrounds and play areas that also can be utilized for outdoor sports, as well as the inside the building for other kind of training programs and social programs. So I would rather look at that before I get into a building that would cost us maintenance and staffing throughout to find out exactly what the 3rd district wants, which would serve the entire city. And I would suggest that we perhaps have a workshop where we can actually spend some time with the people to talk about this very specifically. What do you want? What can we do? And take care of the outside things with the staff actually going into the process, because they're the ones that are going to have to carry out the work. I don't want to tell them what to do. I think it's best that they tell us this is how we basically should proceed after we know what the people want.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. Councilman Hare.
I kind of agree with what Councilman Cole said and Councilman Neal, but going back years, council used to have every year a retreat. And, you know, sometimes I feel like we're sitting here just kind of boom, boom, taking shots at the wall, throwing darts, say, well, let's do this, let's do that. You know, I think we need to go back and have a retreat so we can sit down and map out a plan. What do we want? What do we want to do? I feel like we're flying by the seat of our pants at times. Do we want to spend millions of dollars at Dover Park? Do we want to do this? What do we want to do? I feel like we don't know what we want to do, and we're just kind of a group of people come in and raise a fuss. We need this, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, we got to do that. Well, I think we need to table this and actually get down and find out, because as Mr. Neal said, a lot of those programs can already be done, whether it be at the library, Shooty Park. I don't know. I think that's what we need to discuss, and everybody bring their thoughts in, their plans, and then we discuss it. Not just this, but other things in the city that might need to be discussed. But I think we should get back to that and have that retreat once a year. And it wasn't a 2-hour retreat. It was a couple days we used to do this. That's all I'm saying.
Well, thank you. I'm encouraged by the desire to look strategically. I think part of the issue of forming together with so many new members a year ago was that we kind of needed to come up to speed on items, and I think now it's a natural evolution of ours to begin that process again, to strategically look out. I will have the clerk poll members this week to get some dates so that we can schedule that. But I'm a little fearful that tomorrow's headline will read City Council Retreats, right? And so we'll call it a workshop planning. It's open to the public, and we will roll up our sleeves and get this done. I appreciate that. Councilman Southern.
I just wanted to remind my council colleagues that I think it was 2013 or 14 when the discussion first came up. I recall Councilman Hutchinson saying, before I leave, I will make sure that a building or something's in place to address the Parks and Recs issues at Dover Park. And I can remember when everyone is in an uproar, and I think that we need to go back to the minutes and go back to the discussion and look at the fact that the people have already spoken, the taxpayers have already spoken. They know what they want. It's not a matter of what we want, it's about what they want. And they want a recreational facility to meet their unique programs and activities, which some could be addressed at the Dover Library or other places. But I think that the Dover Park issue, I think that the individuals on that side of town have been put off long enough. And not only as a councilman for the 4th District, but also as the Social Action Commission chair, I'm saying that it's been long enough. And I'm saying that we need to move forward and not stall this any longer. Thank you.
This was an item that had no, I'm sorry, Councilman Hutchinson.
Mr. President, thank you. I just think it's important to keep in mind that there is a detailed review being looked at as we speak.
Right.
And I think it's also important as we look at this that we may, I have said for a long time, there's a lot of, whether it be the school system or the churches, or what, we need to look at Kent County, we need to look at the state, and we need to look at a comprehensive review of what is being offered, because it's very different now compared to when we first started the review process. And we need to find out what the answers are before we make a financial decision on what we're going to do. So I really think very strongly that we have a responsibility to get those facts.
Councilman Neal and then Councilman Lewis.
I think we also need to look at the cost. Where's the money coming from? And are the taxpayers who want it, are they going to be willing to pay for this? And I think that's one of the reasons why we have to look at other resources, as Councilman Hutchinson has pointed out. And several of us have done that. So it's not just Hutch, it's the rest of us as well. Where's the money coming from?
I think the bottom line here, Mr. President, is what do the people want? What do the taxpayers want of this city? I know when I served on the Park and Rec Committee a year ago, we conducted a survey, and I went out in my community and asked people, and it went from another building, dog park, a water park. There were several ideas, and we kind of like separated, you know, how many people wanted this, how many people wanted that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Anderson, because you were chair of Parks and Recs. Did we not do that?
Yes, we did. We've, in fact, over the past couple of years, we've had public hearings, and there's been at least 3 surveys. So, and we have also reached out to the schools and see what cooperation would come from Capitol. But the reason why we're talking about it is because you can, the schools are great, but they have their own programs and activities, and you do think if based on someone else's schedule, not yours, it limits you a lot. That's why a private partnership was looked at, where they could build a publicly accessible building on the public land. That was that's why we were looking at that option, which would not cost us staff time, maintenance, and which would provide a public facility.
This was an item that did not have committee action attached to it, so we do not need to take any actions unless council wants to so do so. If not, we'll move on to Council Committee of the Whole report, item B2, water production well number 6.
Move acceptance of Parks and Recreation.
We can do one for the whole council committee.
Okay, sounds good.
This would be a utility committee, water production well number 6, fencing upgrade. Councilman Hutchison, do you want to brief us on this item? Or?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The committee met as a whole. We met on September 13, 2016, and this item, water production well number 6, fencing upgrades, was looked at. The committee referred to the city council without a recommendation. With that, I would refer to the city manager.
Thank you, Councilman Hutchison. At the committee, staff introduced a new request to create a project in the capital plan with respect to security fencing at water production well number 6, which is located adjacent to the new Westover connector just south of Rodney Village. As we progress through the construction of the Westover connector, concerns have been raised regarding the fencing. It has been damaged by some fallen trees, as well as the age of the fencing has exceeded its normal intended life. During the committee meeting, we got into a discussion regarding a fencing quote that was in the packet from Ducks Quality Fence. Staff has then since gone back and discussed the issue with the purchasing agent. Ultimately, what we are recommending based on those discussions is to authorize staff to create a capital improvement project titled Water Production Well Number 6 Fence Upgrade with a project budget of $40,000. This project includes expenses related to the removal and disposal of the existing fence, purchase and installation of a new fence, and any miscellaneous concrete expenses to install sidewalk or curbing to protect the fencing. The funding of the project would be transferred from a large project known as water quality improvements. The water quality improvement budget for FY17, as shown on the action form, was $645,800. If council authorizes this, the water quality improvement budget would be reduced to $605,800. This project for the fencing upgrade would be inserted into the capital plan at $40,000. The fencing specs were sent to Mr. Gregg. They are back out on the street for advertisement as of 9/22 last Thursday, and bids on the fencing are due on October 6th, provided council authorizes the project. If council does not authorize the project, the bids would just expire, and the city of Dover our staff will be executing the lowest responsible bid if council authorizes the project. Any remaining funds that might be left over after the project is completed would revert back to water quality improvements and be eligible for future projects in the FY17 budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Coney. Any questions from council? Staff?
It's a pleasure of council.
Move that we proceed with the RFP for the fencing for this project.
Second.
Been moved by Councilman Neal and seconded by Councilman Hare to proceed with the RFP for the fencing upgrade to water production well number 6. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'll now take a motion from Councilman Anderson to accept the Council Committee of the Whole report for September 13th.
So moved, Mr. President.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Anderson, seconded by Councilman Neal. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Item number 5, the ICMA 401 plan amendment for non-bargaining employees. Request Mrs. Mitchell, please brief us on this item.
Yes, thank you, Council President Slavin. You have in your packet a letter addressed to me dated September 12, 2016 from the ICMA Retirement Corporation, and this is related to a motion that was passed by Council on May 23rd I'll read the motion, to amend the proposed ordinance to 2016-10, the proposal for non-bargaining employees such that 3% is maintained as the minimum, with the maximum allowable being 9%, and that the increases are at the employee option, was carried by a unanimous roll call vote. And that was off of the DOE agreement and what the DOE employees were provided in their contractual agreement for changes to the 401. With the DOE agreement, it was a fixed contribution. With the non-bargaining employees, council's motion was to do a range of contributions, so not to mandate employee has to give a certain percentage. And I had a couple questions based on my reading of the plan documents I've been trying to get answered from ICMA for some time, and they have answered them in this letter. And what the letter basically says is that the employee can choose between a range of contributions, but they cannot change their contribution. Once the employee is hired and elects a certain contribution, it's irrevocable. So they could not increase it. So if you start out at 3% when you were hired here, that 3% is irrevocable. And so therefore, we cannot implement this change for the non-bargaining employees. It can be implemented if it is approved tonight with the effective date of this evening for new hires, but only new hires with the understanding that whichever percentage they choose within these ranges is irrevocable. So I just wanted to make that clear to council and basically let you know what the path forward would be. If you choose to keep this motion in place, it would be for new hires effective this evening, because anybody hired prior to today, I guess you would say, is basically, they've already made their election and it's irrevocable. And this is based on IRS regulations. So.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. I'm going to ask, kind of rolling tape back in my head back to our budget discussions and the long, torturous discussion and motions and other motions we had on how we would resolve this issue. How is it that we spent all that time on this issue without knowing that the plan didn't support the solution that was being proposed?
Council President Slavin, I've spent considerable amount of time trying to get some answers from ICMA-RC. When I finally finally tried to get the Doe contract resolved, what they advised me was to go ahead and submit the plan document with the changes, so I did that, and we were trying to get that in by April 30th because we had to submit a new plan document based upon their request by April 30th anyway. So I sent the cover letter and the plan document incorporating those changes. They approved it, signed it, sent it back to me. So I still was uncomfortable because I was reading the language in the plan document. I read the word irrevocable. I didn't know if the irrevocable was if council, basically you would need to start a new plan based on a council motion, or if it was permanently irrevocable. And then I did see the ranges, and that's why when council made the motion for the ranges, I put that question in there too, to see if I could get an answer on that. And with ICMA-RC, you get a 1-800 number and you're with a bank of employees that you get each time you call. It's not like you get the same person all the time. So, and then our account rep, we've emailed her. She wasn't real responsive. So I've had several emails going back and forth. I've had several phone calls. Finally, they got my questions into the legal area, and they finally called me back. With the Doe agreement, they signed it, sent it back, but their understanding was because I put the council's motion date in there as the effective date for Doe, they thought that was new hires as of that date. They didn't realize we were grandfathering in other employees. And so I explained that when I finally got the legal department on the call. I sent 2 requests, sent 2 letters. One was June 14th, and August 9th I sent a second request because we've had management staff that's wanted to increase their contributions, and we haven't been able to allow them without the new plan document. And finally, just this past couple weeks, I finally got some answers to my questions.
Questions of council? Pleasure of council. For a motion to accept the staff recommendation to allow the additional contributions for new employees only.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Hosfeld, second by Councilman Neal. To accept staff recommendation of allowing additional contributions to the ICMA 401 plan amendment for non-bargaining employments for new employees only. Is there any further discussion? Councilman Hare?
Can we terminate everybody and rehire them?
No, I don't think that's a plan.
Sometimes when thoughts come to your head, you might want to
just give them a chance to change.
Any further discussion? Councilman Lewis.
I'd just like to make comment. I was the one who introduced this motion back during our budget hearings, and I concur with you, Mr. President. Why did it take so long? I guess it is what it is. We're IRS mandated, so we just have to move forward.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 7 is a rezoning request for property located at 51 Roosevelt Avenue. First reading is offered on proposed ordinance number 2016-20. It is recommended for referral to the Planning Commission for a public hearing on October 17, 2016, and that a public hearing before City Council be set for November 14, 2016, at 7:30 p.m., at which time the final reading and council action will take place. The ordinance is available at the entrance of council chambers, on the city's website at www.cityofdover.com under the Government tab, or by contacting the clerk's office at 736-7008 or via email at cityclerk@dover.de.us. The first reading of the rezoning ordinance is for introduction and referral of the amendment only. It should not be relied upon as approval of the zoning classification. This is for property located at 51 Roosevelt Avenue, owned by Carla M. and John W. Russell. This property is currently zoned R8, one-family residence. The proposed zoning is C1, neighborhood commercial. What's the pleasure of council?
Move to accept staff recommendation.
You're moving to refer the matter.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Hare, second by Councilman Neal. Questions on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. I'll now defer to the city clerk for the introduction of the proposed ordinance in accordance with Section 1-9 of the Dover Code.
Proposed ordinance number 2016-20, amending the zoning ordinance and zoning map of the city of Dover by changing the zoning designation of property located at 51 Roosevelt Avenue. This constitutes the first reading. The final reading is scheduled to take place on November 14, 2000.
Thank you. Item number 8, city manager's announcements.
Thank you, Council President Slavin. I have two. The first one being that the fall leaf collection begins on Monday, October 17th. The second one being that we are beyond the timeframe to have property taxes paid. Our tax delinquency list is about 42 pages at this moment. The notices will be mailed out for delinquent taxes on October 3rd from the tax office. And the list is available on the new city website. I would request that people check that to see if they're on the list. We'll be starting to invoke the clean hands for permits and other items to compel people to get off the tax delinquency list. So please take notice of that on the website, as well as the leaf collection operations that will start Monday, October 17th. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 9 is council members' announcements. I'll offer a belated by 1 day birthday wish to Councilman Jim Hosfeld. Happy birthday, Councilman. Any other members have announcements? Councilman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to announce that InCall is having a free energy educational workshop, which will help you explore ways to reduce your energy bills. That is this Thursday, the 29th, 4 to 5 p.m. at the InCall Research at 363 Salisbury Road in Dover. Anyone who wants to register can do so by calling 302-249-7014. The First State Community Action is the one that is promoting this. And you can email them or call them directly. And that number again is 302-249-7014. And I want to thank citizens who have responded as well to the land bank proposal, have been submitting information. We have the best research crew around the citizens of Dover. Anybody wants to keep submitting information, feel free. There should be a proposal coming in the near future.
Thank you, Councilman Sullivan. No? Any other members of council with announcement? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Neal, second by Councilman Lewis. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you.